always said when I left my job, if I have to, I know I can go back to work. So it's kind of a safety net. But thank goodness I haven't had to either. And also, another thing you said there about having the right, you realize you love doing the work when you had the right clients for the work. And that's really interesting. So I'm honestly, I'm sitting here thinking back of some of the clients I've had over the years, because I used to do social media management. That's how I kind of started out this business. And some of the clients I had were pretty terrible. I think maybe it wasn't that I didn't really like social media management. Maybe I really just didn't have very great clients. But I'm in a whole different space now, thank goodness. So I had a few questions for you. So your podcast has got, so tell me, your podcast is called Empowered Publicity?
Yes.
And it's got like over 200 episodes.
Yeah. Yep. I've been doing it for, it's got to be about 5 years now, I guess.
Congratulations.
4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Brilliant. But you have you been a guest on lots of other podcasts?
Yeah. Podcast is my favorite medium, and it's a powerful, I love having conversations like this. I'm into, deep connection and having substantial interactions. So podcasts are the medium for that. And they also, when I work with clients, we talk about the impact that different kinds of media can have on your business.
Yes.
And of all of the different types of media, from podcasts to radio to magazines, newspapers, television, online media, podcasts are the ones that most closely approximate word of mouth and that deeper connection, that sort of trust factor that we really need in order to get people to invest in our business. And so podcasts are the most effective media to generate a deeper connection with an audience and to get in front of new audiences who will want to interact with you further.
Yes. I love podcasts as well. And part of my thing, I need to get on more podcasts. That's part of my business plan. But you mentioned there are so many different types of media for people to get their message out. When someone comes to work with you, do they have an idea of where they want help? So say, does someone come to you and say, Amanda, I want you to get me on TV, or I want you to help get me published in Forbes, or do they come and say, I need some help raising my visibility? What do you suggest?
Yeah. So I love that question, because a lot of times people will come to me with a preconceived notion of where they think they should be seen, or what they think they should be doing in terms of a tactic. And it's kind of, I actually joke that people will pop up on my radar and be like, I just need to be on more podcasts. Can you help me be on more podcasts? And I always want us to take a step back and look at what is the goal here. Because like I said, different media do different things for your business, but different visibility tactics do different things for your business. And media is just one piece of the big visibility picture. So if the goal is to get more clients, then I would recommend a completely different track for getting you out there to get clients in short order. If the goal is to become a thought leader and be out there with your philosophy and shift something in your industry and, have a bigger footprint in that way, increase credibility, then we would go in a different direction. We would go sort of this more mass visibility route. So I always try to, take my clients by the hand and invite them to take a step back and look at the big picture with me, so we can figure out what path we need to chart in order to get to where they want to go.
Yes, I love that. And I think that probably a lot of people don't really realize where they should be and what's going to make the best impact for them.
Exactly.
Does that mean then, Amanda, so say, for example, you had a client and you spent some time together and you worked out that the best thing for this client is going to be about getting on as many conference stages as they can in the next 18 months. Does that mean that you personally have to be and keep up connections with the people who source the speakers? Or, if it's about getting into as many podcasts as possible, do you have to build relationships with as many podcast hosts as possible, because that'd be quite exhausting to do.
Right? Do you mean me personally or my clients?
No, for you to get you to connect your clients in the right places.
Yeah. So the way that my sort of philosophy around my work is that I want to empower my clients to create their own relationships, because those are the ones that are going to benefit them over time. They're relationships they can capitalize on in perpetuity, as opposed to a traditional publicist who is the keeper of all of the connections. And when you choose, or if you choose to cease working with them, then you don't benefit from those connections anymore. And the one thing that I've learned over my 8 years in entrepreneurship is that your relationships are everything. They're everything. Yeah. And the more relationships that you can create, and the more authentically you can create those relationships, the more gratifying business becomes, the more fun it is. And the more, the more you can capitalize on them, and the more people want to help you, because you're connected in a marked way. Yes. The other thing that I'll say about that myself is, yes, I do have a lot of connections, which I've been sort of reflecting on that a bit lately, because it's not the person who I knew myself to be when I was sort of like growing up and in friendships and in, I wasn't like in a clique in my school. I always felt like I was on the outside, and I had friendships that relationships with close girlfriends that just sort of dissolved and was very painful and all of that. And I was always like, maybe I'm not a good friend, or maybe people just don't like me. Like it was absolutely the story that I would tell myself for many, many, many years of my life. And so now that I have this like vast community of women who are so motivated and inspiring and seem to like me, and who I really respect and love. It's just sort of this amazing transformation in this, or it's forced me to transform the story that I tell about myself.
That's good. I mean, I think thinking back to, oh my goodness, thinking back to school days, it's hard. It's really hard. And you have a story about yourself that you tell yourself. So I'll tell you a quick story about me growing up. When I went to transferred into school, so we have primary school and secondary school here. And when I started secondary school, I was very quiet, and I would really genuinely prefer to sit and read a book than to really hang about with other kids in the playground. But also we had 200 kids in each year group in our school. So it was massive and it was a bit overwhelming. So I was pretty quiet for those 7 years. And then I went to university in Scotland, and I just became this different. Well, I didn't feel like I was a different person, but I remember a girlfriend who had been at my school. I overheard her saying to somebody, I can't believe Louise, she wasn't like this at school. She was so quiet and boring. I thought it was. That's how you saw me. But I found my people at university, and I came out of myself. And I'm glad that I didn't let that, affect the rest of my life, that being labeled as this quiet, boring person who'd rather sit and read a book than do whatever the other people were doing that I wasn't interested in.
Right. But yeah. And sometimes too, even though that reflection was like not something you necessarily want to overhear, it's also like, wow, that's validation that I am sort of evolving. And it's hard to see it that way at the time. But in retrospect, that's sort of my takeaway from that is sometimes we do need to see ourselves the way other people see us.
Yeah, it's interesting. Another question I had for you, because you've been in lots of publications, so I'm assuming that you apply your own teachings to yourself.
I try. I could do a better job of that. The cobbler's son with no shoes.
I know. So I ticked one of my newspaper bucket lists So in the UK, we have the broadsheets. So we have the Times and the Guardian and the Telegraph and all those papers.
Right.
And my the one that I wanted to get into was the Guardian.
Uh-huh.
And I got into it, and actually my podcast got listed in it, like early days, because I connected with the journalist on Twitter.
Amazing. Right. Good job, Louise.
Thank you.
Amazing.
So I don't think I'm too bad. I'm not too shabby at this, I don't think.
Right. You got great instincts.
Yeah. And then I write for Social Media Examiner.
Oh, great.
Which is brilliant. And that's my industry. You know, that's for me, that's really good because that's the industry that I work in. But I wanted to know if you have a bucket list. Oh, yes, my bucket list, I'd like to be in Forbes. That's my bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why particularly. I just have this hang up that I want to be in an article in Forbes. But I actually missed an opportunity recently where somebody who writes for Forbes said, well, Louise, let me know what it is that you want to, you know, what's your contribution to my article? And I missed the deadline for, which is a bit foolish. But anyways, have you got a publication or a TV program or a podcast that you haven't got on yet that you'd like to get on?
That is such a good question. That's amazing. Ooh. So I've always had, this would do nothing for my business, I don't think. Yeah. But I always had this idea for an article for an industry magazine called PR Week that would speak to the shifting paradigm that I feel I'm pioneering if I were to give myself that much credit, which I don't know if I would, but I would sort of frame it in that way for the magazine that that business, that there is a wide swath of business owners who are not served by the traditional PR structure because agencies are inaccessible to small business owners, particularly solo entrepreneurs, and that there are people like me who are out there teaching small, micro businesses how to do PR for themselves because that's the necessity for them at the stage of business that they're in. So that's been on my mind to pitch for probably 3+ years at this point. So I should do that. Thank you for reintroducing that into my, in the frontal lobe of my, or I don't even know the anatomy of the brain, but into like the front of my mind.
Have to tag whoever is on the staff for that journal in this episode then and just get on them.
Yes. That's a great idea, actually.
Excellent. Oh dear. So if I was one of these service-based businesses, I mean, I think, Amanda, I'd be right in saying that as somebody who, I'm a solo entrepreneur and there's so many things we have to do all the time, isn't there?
Yes.
And there's lots of things that we have to pay for as well. And, we pay for like coaching and software and all sorts of things. So if someone decides, right, do you know what? Well, it's the second half of 2020. So for the rest of 2020, I'm going to prioritize, I'm going to have a goal, and that's to get myself onto, 5 podcasts or to get myself to pitch to be on a TV show or something. What ways do people work with you? What would be your starting point for that person?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, again, I would want us to take a step back and examine kind of what the big goal is. Like, is the goal simply to be out there verbalizing your story or being seen, having your name in print? If that's the goal, then fine, let's go in that direction. If the goal is to,
just you there, Amanda, obviously I'm like probably all of the people who reach out to you, and you probably have to stop everybody and say, well, why are you doing this?
Right. Yeah, but I have this great conversation that I have with everyone who approaches me about work together that really does get us to like the bottom line of what they want to create. So it helps me right off the bat articulate how we would do that. So it's a fun conversation to have. It's just like very